You're listening to Good Mic Work Commentaries, hosted by Greg Morgan, a pro wrestling podcast for adults, discussing the fun, wild, and sometimes insane world of professional wrestling.
What is going on, everybody? Good Mic Work Commentaries back at you with episode 502. Look at me coming up here on a Sunday. Holy shit, what is going on? For those of you who have been paying attention to my last couple of episodes, I have been informing all of you that there will be a few minor changes taking place on the YouTube channel in the next few weeks, and this is one of them. I have decided that my weekly podcasts, my normal Raw and SmackDown reviews that I've been doing every single week, may not be necessary every single week anymore. They are becoming a huge chore. So on weeks that things are a little light on TV and there's not much going on, like we've seen here in the month of May, I wanted to come up here on YouTube and talk about stuff that I actually enjoy talking about instead of reviewing shitty shows. So one of the things I decided to do was start two brand new series on my channel, one of which has already debuted. Some videos are starting to appear on my channel now. It's called Mic Drops, and it's basically just a small segment where I take clips and snippets and excerpts from previous commentaries throughout the years and upload them to YouTube, basically as like a best of series. And the whole purpose of this is just to get more content, more videos out there, circulating through the internet wrestling community on YouTube for people to potentially discover and find me, and hopefully will land me some new subscribers. I'm not going to get a ton of views on these things or anything like that. Most of these have under 1,000 so far. I thought that would make a fun little extra segment for the channel. The other segment was supposed to debut right now. I had planned to debut my new one-off segment tonight discussing CM Punk's UFC fight. The concept of the video was very simple. It's just one video, one subject. And it's a new series that I want to incorporate into the YouTube channel. If there's a big story that breaks in wrestling, if there's a big debate going on, or any sort of major news or anything worth discussing on its own, I've designed this new series to be used for that. And I thought that I would come up here and talk about CM Punk's fight as the very first episode. But considering how much other stuff is going on right now in wrestling, including CM Punk's trial with the WWE that also concluded this week. We also had New Japan's amazing Dominion show that aired late on Friday night, which I stayed up to watch the entire thing. And damn, I'll tell you what, man, that shit did not disappoint. And there's also some WWE rumors and news to get into, believe it or not. Even though I did not review Raw and SmackDown this week, there has been some major news leaking out and breaking that WWE might already have a main event in place for SummerSlam, and it sparked a ton of outrage and debate online, so we'll get into that as well. Big week also scheduled on my YouTube channel, so stay tuned in the next few days. You're getting this video, of course, today on Sunday. Tomorrow night during Monday Night Raw, I will be up for my normal Monday Night Raw live watch-along, so join me over here on the live stream on Monday night if you want to watch Raw and suffer through it with me. It is the go-home show to Money in the Bank, so hopefully something interesting will happen. Then on Tuesday, the 13th, I'm going to have a This Day in History / pay-per-view review up for you, 25th anniversary of a very big show. And then on Wednesday or Thursday, I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I don't think you're going to get a Raw and SmackDown review. I'm going to save that until the end of the week. So maybe on Wednesday or Thursday, I might come up here and do a one-off episode. If not, you'll have a few mic drops sprinkled in over those couple of days. And then probably late in the week, Thursday night or Friday, I will come up here with my full Money in the Bank predictions. I will predict every single match, and I will touch on whatever we see on the Go Home Raw and SmackDown shows. So we have got a full week of content coming to you, and it's going to be a very, very busy June as well. Coming up on June 28th, I have another big This Day in History, a 20th anniversary of another big show. I also have a DVD review coming. Hopefully, I'm going to upload a few episodes of the one-off, and I'm going to have a whole bunch of mic drops ready in queue for when I go on vacation on July 8th, and I'm gone for about 9 days. I will be able to have some content being uploaded to the channel. So I've got a lot going on, and it's going to be a very busy summer here on the Good Mic Work channel. So thank you for sitting through all of those channel announcements. Let's get into what we're discussing tonight. And of course, we have to start with UFC 225. CM Punk had his second fight in the UFC. He got completely destroyed by Mickey Gall in his debut, and a lot of people felt like it was a mismatch. He was completely outclassed. and outmanned, and Mickey Gall is a million times better fighter than CM Punk could ever dream of being, and it was probably not a fair opponent for CM Punk. So what they did is they found another guy by the name of Mike Jackson, who was also 0-1, who I believe his one loss was also to Mickey Gall, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong about that. But basically took a guy more on CM Punk's quote-unquote skill level, put CM Punk in the octagon with this guy, and see if he can do any better. Well, he did better. I will say that for CM Punk. He at least lasted the duration. He did not get knocked out. It went to a decision. So that was a stark contrast from his first fight with Mickey when he didn't even get out of the blocks. You know, we weren't even really able to judge what kind of a fighter CM Punk was because we literally were not able to see him move at all. I mean, he got, double leg takedown in the first 5 seconds of the fight, and then Mickey Gall just pounded him into the mat the whole time. So this fight against Mike Jackson, we got to see CM Punk's technique, his form, his style, to see if this guy is any good at all. And I'm no fighting expert, but he sucks. I mean, he is really bad. Mike Jackson, for the most part, looked like he was toying with CM Punk. Now, I give CM Punk all the credit in the world for getting in the octagon and essentially risking your life. I mean, come on, if you have no training and you're getting into this, hard-hitting, hardcore combat sport, one well-placed punch to the head or even the abdomen sometimes, like Houdini, can end your life. So you really are risking your life getting in there and getting your face bashed in, permanent injury, all sorts of different things, horrible things that can happen to you. And the fact that CM Punk is doing this, whether he's paid or not, and I'll get into that here in a minute because I was surprised at all of the debate online about whether or not CM Punk deserves to be respected, and it fucking made my brain hurt. So we'll get into that in a minute. But regardless of how much he's getting paid, to even get in there takes a huge set of balls. But when we were able to see this time, when we were able to see CM Punk actually move in the ring and fight this guy, he looks like he does not know what he is doing at all. And it was tough to watch. It was, I was nervous for him. I was worried he was going to get killed. I wasn't worried about CM Punk losing. I was certain that he was. I predicted him to lose, a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, he's probably not going to win. So for him to get in there and actually try, to me just takes a shit ton of guts. So I'm at least going to respect him for that. But when I was watching him move, a couple of those kicks that he was throwing that he missed and he kind of spun all the way around, it looked like two toddlers in the backyard, fighting, and one of them kicks and misses and he spins himself around and almost falls down. He just didn't look like a fighter. He just didn't look like a professional fighter. Now, if CM Punk had chosen this profession when he was a teenager instead of professional wrestling, I'm sure CM Punk could have been a pretty good fighter. But when you start doing this shit in your mid-30s and you're given a professional fight on UFC pay-per-views, no less, I was going to be really surprised if he went in there and actually won. I was rooting for him. But I really wasn't that optimistic that he was going to win. And most of our fears were confirmed when he got in there and got completely just outclassed by this guy, Mike Jackson, who, for the most part, looked like he was fucking around with CM Punk a little bit. Now, Punk landed a couple of punches, did have a takedown, I think, or two, but for the most part, Mike Jackson just treated CM Punk's face as a punching bag. I mean, it was just one punch after another. Punk wasn't getting his hands up. He wasn't blocking anything. At one point when Mike Jackson had Punk down on the canvas, he wasn't even looking at Punk when he was punching him. He was looking straight ahead, maybe over at his trainers, maybe into the crowd, I don't know, but he was just landing punches one after another without even looking at his opponent. So it was ugly, and it went to a decision. Both guys survived. CM Punk gave the guy a nice hug and respect after the fight, and it was unanimous. All the judges voted for Mike Jackson, and it was really not much of a match, and I am surprised that CM Punk did not get knocked out. Apparently he was taken to the hospital for concussion concerns, and I wouldn't doubt it if he had one. When I watched some of those punches and a couple of elbows back in slow motion, the fact that Punk didn't get knocked out is pretty impressive. If that was me, if one of those punches or elbows would have hit me in the face, I would have been in a fucking coma until WrestleMania 50. So even though my hat goes off to CM Punk for actually getting in there and doing this, it was a fight that should have never been on a UFC card. CM Punk is, he's not professional fighter level. You know, he's an amateur. He's got no business. He should be fighting in dirty arenas for $50. He should not be on UFC pay-per-views making $500,000. But that's what happens when you're famous. That's what happens when a company, you know, wants to spark a good buy rate or spark a lot of interest. You're going to give this guy an opportunity. And that's the other part of this big debate, is that after the fight, there's a lot of people, you know, shitting on CM Punk. Oh, he's a piece of shit. I don't know why people are, you know, giving him respect. He just went in there. He got paid $500,000 to get his face punched in. Like, you wouldn't do that. All that stuff is technically true, but you're directing these debates towards the wrong people. It's completely pointless to be pissed at CM Punk for this. And it's even more pointless to be pissed at me about it. What the fuck do I have to do with any of this? If you have anything to say about this, or you have an opinion about whether or not CM Punk deserved to be on a UFC card or not, you need to be directing your hate tweets to a man by the name of Dana White. WWE does the same thing. Lawrence Taylor got a main event at WrestleMania because of who he was. This is nothing new. And on top of that, CM Punk signed with the UFC 2.5 years ago. These are all debates that have been going around ever since CM Punk signed his name on the dotted line. So now that the fight is over, and most likely CM Punk's UFC fight career is as well, what the fuck is the point of debating this now? It's over. Paying your dues for the next 5 years at this stage of his life, I don't believe is really going to make him a better fighter. So I think this is the end of the road for CM Punk. I think it needs to be. Otherwise, he's risking potential injury here. He might have gotten another concussion tonight. He most likely did. And according to all the stories we heard during the trial, he got one in WWE just a couple of years ago. So he needs to maybe hang things up. I just don't think he's cut out for it. But like I said, I respect him for trying, but this really has to be it, because he has not looked good. This is twice now. He looked like shit against Mickey Gall, and he looked, you know, better, but in a lot of ways worse against Mike Jackson. I mean, I think CM Punk's lack of fighting ability was even showcased more against Mike Jackson, when he didn't even look like he was strong. He looked gassed. He looked overmatched. There didn't look like there was anything behind his punches near the end there. And Mike Jackson just toyed with him, held him down, and pounded his face into oblivion. So CM Punk got his face rearranged twice in both of his UFC fights. So I think this has got to be it. I think he's got to be done. It was ugly, and I don't want to see him go through this again, because if he can't beat a guy that's 0-1, who's he going to beat? What are you going to do? Keep throwing jabronis at him until he finally beats somebody? It's not going to happen. I think even the most inexperienced fighters are going to be good enough to beat somebody like CM Punk. That's just my opinion. But, you know, I thought it was, you know, a valiant effort. But CM Punk, you got to not do this anymore. It was not pleasant to watch. And I wish you the best in whatever you choose to do in the future. With this fight being over, like I said, I'm hoping this is the end of CM Punk's run in the UFC and in MMA in general. And I kind of mentioned that in my last couple of commentaries, that there was part of me deep down that was hoping he would lose. Because if he wins, then he's going to get another fight, which means he's going to have to train for another 2 years. And the longer this goes on, the smaller the window of opportunity for CM Punk to ever return to professional wrestling gets. And it looks like that window may have been closed for good. He did do an interview in the last couple of days talking about his return to professional wrestling. Maybe he's working people. Maybe this is just a swerve so he can show up at All In or in Japan somewhere as a big surprise. But it seems like CM Punk has no interest and no desire to ever be involved in professional wrestling again. And it's a shame. It's kind of sad. I mean, wrestling broke him. It's so sad to see someone who dedicated their whole lives to wrestling, somebody that had such a passion for it, to be rendered down to somebody that wants nothing to do with the business. He's completely jaded. He hated the experience. WWE literally, you know, just ruined him. And he was a big star. I mean, think about how underneath guys must feel. I mean, CM Punk was on top. He was WWE champion, and he still hated his life in that fucking company. So, you know, considering all the unhappiness WWE brought to CM Punk, whether it was justified or not, doesn't matter. He personally was unhappy. to the point where now he really doesn't want anything to do with wrestling, and it's sad. I'm hoping that there's a never say never aspect there. I'm hoping that one day CM Punk can maybe get the itch to get back in the ring, especially if his MMA career is now hopefully over. So if he decides to return to wrestling, maybe now he can, but according to what he's been saying lately, it seems like that's the last thing in the world he wants to do, and as a wrestling fan, that sucks, because CM Punk, the UFC fighter, is garbage, but CM Punk, the professional wrestler, is pretty goddamn good. So I'm hoping that maybe one day we'll see him again, but it is not looking likely. He had a busy week. I mean, not only did he have all this shit with his UFC fight going on, his trial with WWE's doctor also wrapped up this week, and himself and Colt Cabana were found totally innocent, not guilty, and the jury did not think that Chris Amon had a case, and neither one of these guys now have to pay any money to this guy. It probably cost both of them a shit ton of money in legal fees, which at the end of the day, that might have been WWE's only motivation there, which just speaks to their pettiness, because they may have known all along that they're probably not going to win this case, but if they can tie CM Punk up in litigation for a couple of years and cost him a few $100,000, then it's a win, right? So these are just really petty, childish games that I can't believe a company of WWE's level would even bother with, especially if they know they really aren't going to be able to convince a judge or jury of anything. So the trial was supposedly separate from WWE. It was all the doctor that was suing on his own, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if WWE had some lawyers there, if WWE, helped pay for this, and it really didn't cost the doctor any money at all, where it took Colt Cabana and CM Punk to the cleaners. But at the end of the day, they were found not guilty despite all of the information that came out. The trial apparently was really funny. There was a lot of really interesting, juicy tidbits coming out of the trial. It's literally pages long. It's too much to go through. Most of you have heard a lot of the news by now. But in addition to everything they talked about, a lot of the podcast was played for the jury, and I even think the jury was told to listen to the entire podcast. So CM Punk was harsh. He shot hard on the WWE in that podcast. So I was worried that was going to make him look bad. I mean, he was just dropping F-bombs left and right. He seemed really overly angry and bitter about the whole thing, and he didn't come off very professional. So I was worried that the jury was going to have a problem with that. But in the end, they just didn't find enough evidence, of the slander that they were being sued for. So the trial did have its serious moments. There was even some emotion. Apparently, CM Punk did break down and cry at one point, I think during his testimony, trying to relive so many of these horrible memories that he has in his head of his final months and days in the WWE, especially at the Royal Rumble, where he had the concussion and Kane put him through the table. And that was a big topic for debate in the trial. And basically, CM Punk was asked a lot of internal questions as well. It's the first shoot interview ever done under oath. I mean, think about how many shoot interviews we see now on podcasts and things like that. I mean, you're only hearing one wrestler's side of it, and you can see now when you hear multiple shoot interviews, you hear one guy's take on an incident versus another guy's take on an incident. They both claim they were there and witnessed it, yet the two stories are completely different. So at least this time there was, a court setting, and CM Punk was under oath. So everything he said while, testifying, I am going to assume was truth. So I was getting a kick out of some of the questions he was asked and some of his responses. And there was some lighthearted moments in the trial as well. There were some laughs, some more easier going type of moments in the trial. But at the end of the day, CM Punk walked away clean from this thing. I'm happy for him. I did not want to have to see this go any further. And if CM Punk would have had to pay this guy, that would have just driven a wedge even further between WWE and CM Punk. It's been a long time, and it feels like it's finally over now. But the CM Punk speculation is not over, because with the trial with WWE being done and his UFC career hopefully over with as well, and a big professional wrestling show independent of WWE coming up in Chicago in just a couple of months, there's still, despite what CM Punk says, I would think there's going to be a shit ton of speculation as to whether or not he will make some sort of an appearance in professional wrestling again. Maybe not to wrestle, maybe just an appearance at first, I don't know. But, hearing his interview and just hearing the, his deflated attitude towards professional wrestling, I think makes me sad than anything else because, CM Punk's a guy that always loved the business. And now look at what it's done to him. So at least for right now, CM Punk might be out of our lives. We might not see or hear from him for a little while, except for maybe on social media. And whatever he winds up doing, whether he comes back to wrestling, whether he retires quietly with AJ Lee at home, or whether or not he decides to continue his MMA career, which I think would be fucking insane. But if he does decide to do that, I wish him the best. Speaking of the UFC, before I move on to the Dominion show here, I did see today, their news did break, that Ronda Rousey is going to be inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame on July 5th. I wasn't even aware that UFC had a Hall of Fame, but she will be going in, and that makes me wonder about her match now with Nia Jax at Money in the Bank. I'm going to give a full prediction on this match and the entire Money in the Bank pay-per-view later on this week, but so far I've kind of been hinting to the fact that I feel like Nia Jax might wind up surviving this title match against Ronda Rousey, considering that Stephanie McMahon is back in the fold here, and you got to think she's got a revenge scheme hatched, and she's got a trick up her sleeve, and she's going to do something to screw over Ronda Rousey. In the back of my mind, that's kind of what I felt like was going to happen. But now I'm wondering, with this UFC Hall of Fame news, that maybe WWE will put the belt on Ronda Rousey because they might want their champion going into a UFC Hall of Fame. It might just be, it just might be good for publicity or whatever the hell WWE's crazy ass reasons are. So I might be changing my prediction in light of this news of Ronda Rousey going into the Hall of Fame. So how many of you, by a show of hands, were able to watch New Japan's Dominion show on Friday night? That was so fucking entertaining. Now, I have been a subscriber to New Japan World ever since Wrestle Kingdom back in January, and I don't even use it. I pay for it every month. I've checked out 2 or 3 shows, and that's it, and visited the website just a handful of times. So I got home very late on Friday, just in time to catch the beginning of the show. It began at midnight for me here on the West Coast, and I stayed up until 5 o'clock in the morning and watched the entire thing. And my God, this was an amazing show. So much fun. And that's why I always enjoy my non-WWE wrestling experiences, especially my Japan wrestling experiences. I don't get a chance to check out the product that much. I used to be much more versed in Japanese wrestling back in the 90s. I used to watch a lot more of it and trade for tapes and shit like that. But nowadays, with the YouTube channel and the podcast and everything else going on, it's really hard to kind of keep up and keep track of Japanese wrestling. But I love checking out these shows from time to time, and it's just so nice after all of these years. I mentioned this on Twitter, that it still has that classic Japanese aesthetic that we remember from back in the day. Just, the dark arenas and the crowd involvement and the way the audience reacts to matches and stuff during shows is so different than over here in the States, and I just love the environment. And I knew this was going to be good. If Wrestle Kingdom and Genesis and all that shit were any indication, we knew Dominion was going to be good, and it had some really good matches slated for this thing, especially the main event. And Chris Jericho, of course, had another match for New Japan as well, and that was the main reason why I was tuning in. So I'm not going to go through the whole card here. To me, there was like 5 matches that are worth mentioning, and the first one, of course, I have to start right at the top with the main event. Motherfucker. This was an insane match. And I know I say this literally after every Japan show or every NXT show, but this might be one of the best matches I've ever seen of all time. Omega and Okada, I swear to you, shaved a couple of years off their careers each with this brutal hour-long match. Really great story here, too. The history between the two is so storied, and even with Kota Ibushi being there, seconding Kenny Omega, being his corner man, and everything going on between them, and the way all these, characters have overlapped and interweaved over the last couple of years has been a really nice full-circle type of story, and I believe Omega and Okada have faced, 3 times? They're 1-1-1. This match was a 2 out of 3 falls match with no time limit, and it was just incredible. I mean, I got my popcorn ready. Once the main event started, I said to myself, I'm like, this thing's going to go an hour. The fact that they're purposely making it a match with no time limit told me that it was going to go over an hour anyway, and I think it went about an hour and 5 minutes. And as far as like a long hour-long match, if you're going to compare and judge this match to other matches in history that have gone an hour or longer, I might say this is the best one, because it was one unbelievable spot after the other, and the guys just took an ass kicking. That's what New Japan does. That's what their main events are. Come watch our pay-per-view. It's going to be two guys kicking the shit out of each other for an hour in the main event, and it's always fun. And this match did not disappoint. A couple of those bumps there, I wasn't even sure if these guys were going to be able to get up. Omega took a couple of bumps on the guardrail, but there was one in particular where he almost landed on it and even stayed there for a minute before gravity pulled him back down to the ground. And I thought he broke his back, and he would go on to take a couple of more similar bumps to that one. There was table spots. There was all sorts of action on the floor and outside the ring. Near fall after near fall. It took forever for the first fall to even happen. Okada did pick up the first fall, and then Omega came back and wound up winning the second fall, bringing us to the final. And by this point, both guys are spent. They've been going nearly an hour. They even did the spot where they're both on their knees just punching each other, but there's nothing behind the punches. I mean, they are completely brutalized and destroyed with nothing left in the tank, but they just keep going and keep going. And eventually, Omega finally is able to nail his finish and get the final 1, 2, 3 on Okada, ending what is just an amazing run with the two. And now he is the IWGP heavyweight champion, and he's arguably the best in the world. I mean, this was a match that I still found incredibly dramatic and entertaining, even though I was figuring Omega was going to win. To me, I thought he was the favorite going into this. I think it's time to put the title on him. And aside from AJ Styles, who can you really say is the best wrestler in the world? If I was going to pick a top 3 professional wrestlers in the world right now as far as ring ability, just workhorse, awesome talents, you got to go AJ 1, Omega 1A or number 2, and Seth Rollins distant third. I mean, the work all three of these guys are doing right now is incredible, and I just thoroughly enjoyed this main event. And what I thought was so great about the main event is I literally just sat through a 4-hour-long pay-per-view in the middle of the night. I'm dead tired by the time the match starts, but I'm wide awake by the time it ends. So the fact that I'm staying up till 5 o'clock in the morning after having a long night at work and then coming home and immediately jumping right into Dominion, I stayed glued to my TV for 5 straight hours. And it was an amazing night of wrestling, and that's why I'm a professional wrestling fan, and I enjoy it when I get a chance to watch wrestling that is not WWE. Now, when I look at New Japan, though, I mean, there's a lot of fans and there's a lot of people like this. I mean, I get tweets all the time about real professional wrestling, and real wrestling fans enjoy Japanese wrestling in this desperate attempt to legitimize and smugly talk about Japan as if it's oddly superior or any less animated than WWE. It's not. It's just as hokey. It's just as silly. It's just presented differently. It just comes at you from a completely different direction. WWE, you know, the majority of their audience is kids, and that really rubs the fans the wrong way. It makes the product less realistic, which pisses the fans off, and they pick apart everything, and the over-promotion and the overproduction of everything that WWE does, it gets mind-numbing. I'm right there with you, which is why Japan is such a nice alternative. And that's why I like watching Japan as an alternative, but it doesn't make me automatically hate WWE. Oh, I don't know why anybody would watch WWE. This is so much better. In my mind, I'm a fan of professional wrestling, and if you prefer New Japan for WWE, I say great. More power to you. Then you need to watch New Japan wrestling and shut the fuck up. Why are you constantly tweeting about WWE wrestling? To me, it just is a big waste of time, that's all. So I know that's kind of been the theme of this commentary. We've been really picking apart the psychology of the wrestling fan. First, they're all up in arms and got their panties in a bunch about CM Punk's UFC fight and whether or not he deserves respect. And now everybody's like, oh, Dominion was so great and WWE's a pile of shit and nobody should watch Money in the Bank and we should all cancel our networks. I don't have that attitude. You know, I'll watch Japan. I'll enjoy that. I'll watch a WWE pay-per-view or an NXT show and I'll enjoy that. To me, you know, I don't personally need to pick and choose, but if you do, I say do that and leave it alone. Keep thy wrestling preference to thyself. Don't worry about shitting on WWE for no reason. It amazes me how many people constantly say how boring WWE is, but yet they don't shut the fuck up about WWE. I was tweeting all throughout the night during Dominion, and I was getting a lot of tweets about WWE. WWE couldn't do this, and WWE couldn't do that, and I'm like, I'm not even thinking about WWE right now. To me, I'm watching New Japan, I'm watching Dominion, I'm watching some amazing wrestling, and that's where my mind is. I'm not wandering off worrying about what the fuck the WWE is doing or whether or not Roman Reigns is going to win a match in August. I don't give a shit. I'm watching the show right now. I'm watching Dominion, and it's awesome. So I just wish more fans could be that way and not just be so combative, so argumentative, so hell-bent on insisting on debating and arguing everything. And not only did we see that during the UFC fight of CM Punk, we also saw it during Dominion. But all of the debate and the comparisons to WWE aside, this was one of the best shows I've seen this year. And if I compare it to Wrestle Kingdom, I don't know, it's close. What do you guys think? Did you prefer Wrestle Kingdom or did you prefer Dominion? I might give the slight nod to Dominion, to be honest with you, because I watched Wrestle Kingdom as well throughout the night. I even live streamed it back then. That video is long since deleted, but it was, I found myself kind of being bored at times because it was such a long pay-per-view. But in Dominion's case, even though it was long, I still found myself, totally jacked up even at the end of the show during the main event and Omega's amazing victory and the big celebration. The Young Bucks came out there and they had the confetti and all the bullshit, and it was great. It was just an amazing night and an amazing moment, and congrats to Omega. And now I don't know if this guy is ever going to come into WWE or not. If it was up to me, I would say no. I would say don't sign with WWE. Once you reach this pinnacle, you might think WWE is going to come after him. But if I was in Omega's shoes, I would say, you know what? The only way I'm coming in is if I come in like AJ Styles. If I'm in the Rumble, or if I go over there and wrestle Chris Jericho, or if I immediately appear on the main roster and I'm a top contender right out of the gate. A guy like Kenny Omega, I don't think has time in his career or really needs to go to NXT for 2 years only to debut on the main roster and kill himself, by the way, in NXT with these crazy type of matches, probably the same quality of matches he's having in Japan. He's going to have to do that in NXT and kill himself for that brand for 2 years, then get moved up to the main roster and become Bobby Roode or become Ty Dillinger. I don't want to see that. I want to see Omega negotiate his shit and say, hey, if you guys want me, you're putting me on the main roster tomorrow, and I want a title shot at your next fucking pay-per-view. I'm that good. So I think much like AJ Styles, Omega needs to be given that preference because AJ, he got a chance to bypass all of that NXT stuff. He got a chance to make it to the main roster based on his work and reputation alone, and I think Omega is to that same point. But again, do you even really want to do that? Why would Kenny Omega want to risk going to the WWE and getting lost in the shuffle when he's a huge star, when he's the best wrestler outside of that company? He's got a good thing going, making a ton of money, having a good time, working at the top of his profession, and has the undying respect from all wrestling fans, especially the smart-ass, real quote-unquote wrestling fans. He's on top of the mountain right now. So in my mind, there's no reason for him to even go to WWE unless he has some personal dream about main eventing a WrestleMania or something like that. To me, that's the only way he needs to be going there. Otherwise, keep doing your thing in Japan, keep doing your thing on the independents, and I'm more than happy to watch Kenny Omega do his thing outside of the WWE. But now that he's champ, who knows in the next year or two if we're ever going to see him taking a selfie backstage with Triple H after he wins a championship. The other big match that took place at Dominion, one of the main reasons why I actually tuned into this pay-per-view to begin with, was the Jericho versus Naito match for the Intercontinental title. Now, this was set up after Wrestle Kingdom. Jericho attacked Naito at one of their shows like the next night, and we weren't even sure if we were going to get a match between these two or not. Finally happens here at Dominion. The title is on the line, and Jericho wins. Chris Jericho, once again, an Intercontinental Champion. How fucking cool is that? And it was a brutal match. Now, I don't know if Jericho and Naito was better than Omega and Jericho. I'm going to say no. I think Jericho and Omega had a better match, but this one was still pretty damn good. And they both took a beating. Jericho, my God, the dude is 47 years old, and I tweeted out that he looked like a homeless Doink. Like if Doink lost all of his makeup and was shirtless and was homeless, that's kind of what I thought Chris Jericho looked like during this match. But Jericho and his 47-year-old dad bod went on to beat Naito and win the Intercontinental Intercontinental title, and I could not be happier for him. I thought that was so cool. And it was a brutal match, too, just hard-hitting as shit. I mean, Jericho took an ass-kicking in his match with Omega back in January, and this one was no different. Both guys just beat the shit out of each other. Naito took a couple of really hard shots. He had a bloody cheek and a bloody eye, I think, at one point, and it was a pretty good match. It started a little slower, I think, but then really picked up at the end. But I found myself mesmerized with Jericho in there at his age and this stage in his life, still doing his thing with everything else he's got going on. With Fozzy and all of those tours, and he's booking a cruise here in the next couple of months for a bunch of fans and all this shit. With everything he's got going on, he still has time to make a trip over to Japan and win a championship. So I thought that was really awesome, and it was a really good match. And how cool was the selfie backstage after the show with Jericho and Omega with their respective title belts? And who knows, maybe Jericho can take that Intercontinental title over to WWE, if I dare say that. I don't know if there can ever be some interpromotional type of shit going on between the two companies, but considering Jericho is now a champion over there, it means he's going to stay there at least for one more match. I don't know if he's going to drop it right away or hold the belt for a little while. He'll probably have a rematch with Naito at some point, so my hat's off to him, man. Just the utmost respect to Jericho and to Naito as well for giving Jericho a hell of a match. Any fears that I might have had that I may not enjoy this match completely evaporated just a few minutes into the bout, and I enjoyed the shit out of it. In a little bit less brutal of a match and some more lighter in-ring work, we saw the Young Bucks defeat Evil and Sonata to win the IWGP Tag Team titles. And this match was okay. I've seen better Young Buck matches, and, you know, a lot of old timers don't like the style of the Young Bucks because it's very choreographed and it's very flippy, and I understand that. That was another thing. Speaking of Twitter, I mentioned something about that as well during the match on Twitter, and I said something like, I can understand why old timers like Jim Cornette don't like this style. I personally like it, but I can see why old timers don't. And then somebody tries to like debate me about it. I'm like, dude, stop trying so hard to argue. I'm not arguing here. I don't personally have an issue with the Young Bucks style, but knowing the mentality of old timers, knowing the mentality of guys like Jim Cornette, I can completely understand why somebody like him would not like the style of the Young Bucks. And I will say in this match, you know, there's a few spots in here that I'm sure will show up on the next Botchamania. They missed a couple of roundhouse kicks and a super kick, and there was some other move that maybe just a drop kick that he completely missed. I think it was Nick. But they won the tag team titles, and I thought that was great. Good for them. They're a hell of a tag team, and just like Kenny Omega, they're a team that I really don't have any desire to see in the WWE. We've seen how shitty the tag team scene is in WWE, and if you put the Young Bucks in NXT, I think they'll be great. But much like Omega, they got no reason to go there. They're on top of the mountain. They're making a ton of money. They're having fun. Hell, they're even funding their own professional wrestling show in September at All In with Cody Rhodes. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, guys like the Bucks, guys like Omega, keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome to watch these guys work. Speaking of Cody Rhodes, he was actually involved in a six-man match. This was the Bullet Club, Cody and Hangman Page and Marty Scurll taking on the team of Hiroshi Tanahashi, Jushin Thunder Liger, and debuting Rey Mysterio Jr., which I love to see. Rey apparently has not worked there before. Good little six-man match. The Bullet Club did get the victory there, and it was really notable because of the debut of Rey Mysterio and, of course, him teaming with Jushin Thunder Liger. Those two guys, I don't know if they've met independently outside of WWE, aside from their WCW days. I don't know when the last time these two dudes crossed paths, if they've had a match together somewhere or not. I don't think they have. So that was really cool. Just kind of a nice attraction match that I found myself enjoying. And the final match that was kind of notable was Will Ospreay losing his IWGP Junior Heavyweight title to Takahashi. Now, there was some word going around that Ospreay was injured. He fucked up his neck, I think, the last show, and he was heavily taped up with trainer's tape, and I don't know any backstory on this, and I don't know any details, but it appears that he probably lost that belt simply so he can take some time off due to his injury. That would be my guess, but he didn't look like the same Will Ospreay we have seen before. Still put on a heck of a fight, still did some incredible things considering the guy's got a bad neck, but it wasn't... I've seen better Ospreay matches, I guess, if I had to give my opinion on it, but I wish him the absolute best. The style that he wrestles is, you know, going to make him very injury prone. A lot of guys are like that just really take a lot of high risk bumps and stuff, so I wish him the best speedy recovery, and hopefully he won't miss too much time at all. And finally, before I get out of here, the final thing I'm going to discuss is the news that was talked about and reported on this week about the WWE possibly already having a main event in place for this year's SummerSlam. And are you ready for this? Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. Wonderful. Just what we need, right? Another match between these two motherfuckers. The wrestling fans are going to have no problem whatsoever with that, right? Wrong. Big wrong. Holy shit. Twitter did not like this at all. And I knew that they wouldn't. And as usual, I'm going to try to look at both sides of the coin here. And on one side of the coin, I completely understand the fans' frustration and outrage. To me, it's almost comical at this point that they're giving us this match again, especially considering everything that we've seen between the two. Roman Reigns getting killed at WrestleMania, falling short at the Greatest Royal Rumble. He's currently locked in a feud with Jinder Mahal. It seems like WWE has actually changed their mind on him. So why are they going to go back to this match when you can put Brock Lesnar in the ring with a number of different opponents, most namely somebody like Seth Rollins, who I think has earned that opportunity. And Brock Lesnar has never defeated Seth Rollins. He's defeated Roman Reigns a couple of times. I think that would be a great match, and I would love to see Seth Rollins be the guy to defeat Brock Lesnar. I think Seth Rollins winning the title at SummerSlam in the main event in front of that New York crowd will be far more effective and enjoyable than Roman Reigns doing the same thing. He's going to be showered with booze, where Seth Rollins is going to be showered with confetti and love. So why WWE is not making that move, I have no fucking idea. So I understand that this is a little bit head-scratching, and it's annoying, and it's frustrating, and it's stupid. But on the other hand, always just trying to play devil's advocate here, when you look at the WWE title match and the outcome of that match at the Greatest Royal Rumble, of course they're going to do this match again. They would not have done that finish to begin with in Saudi Arabia if they didn't have a plan to do this match another time. So when you look at it from that side, I'm really not surprised at all that they're doing this match again at SummerSlam, and it might just be more of that storyline with Roman Reigns, how he can't beat Brock, and now even when he's got him beat, he still can't win because there's a conspiracy against him, and the authority and the management is out to get him, and they don't want him champion, and this whole stupid story that they're trying to develop here between the two, this could all be part of that, and it could finally see Roman Reigns coming full circle and finally defeating the Beast clean at SummerSlam, because they got to take the belt off of Brock at SummerSlam, right? I mean, enough is enough with this shit. He's had the belt now for a year and 3 or 4 months, nearly a year and a half, and he's going to defeat CM Punk's title run from 2012. May have already done it. If not, he'll surpass that record here in the next few weeks. He'll definitely have it by the time we get to SummerSlam. And if he is going to return to the UFC, or if his contract that may have been extended for another 6 months or whatever is running out, he could drop the belt and leave again until next year's WrestleMania, or go back to mixed martial arts. We really don't know what's going on there. So on one hand, I'm really anxious to see Brock Lesnar lose the title and to get that fucking belt back on Raw every week, because we've been virtually world titleists on Raw now for nearly a year and a half. It's time to get that belt back. So let's try to, like I said earlier, I would love nothing more than for Seth Rollins to get this opportunity, but let's say it is Roman Reigns. And let me throw this scenario at you. Do you think it would be worth it? Do you think the fans could handle it if they can just put up with the match and Roman Reigns winning the belt, but having the Money in the Bank briefcase holder come in and cash in on him in the main event and take the belt off of him? I think that would be great, especially if the briefcase holder is somebody like a Kevin Owens, who I said right from the start would be a great guy to hold the briefcase because he would make that entertaining as shit. And Kevin Owens is naturally opportunistic as it is, so he would be a perfect character to hold the briefcase. You could even give it to somebody like Finn Balor, who won the title at SummerSlam and had to forfeit it the next day and never really got a rematch for it. Maybe the only way he can get his belt back is if he gets the briefcase and takes advantage of a situation. Now, even though he's a babyface, you know, if Roman Reigns wins the belt and babyface Finn Balor cashes in, Finn Balor doesn't even necessarily have to turn heel. He can just cash in on Roman Reigns. Imagine the pop. It would be like the reverse of 2013 when Daniel Bryan beat John Cena, but then Randy Orton showed up and cashed in. I mean, it was like the fans were like, what the fuck? This would be the opposite of that. Instead of being overjoyed that Daniel Bryan won the title and have the rug ripped out from under them, this time they can be pissed that Roman Reigns has won the title, but they can be redeemed when Finn Balor or Kevin Owens or somebody comes out there with the briefcase and steals the title away from Roman, which would perfectly tie in to this narrative that he's been pushing about the authority and management being against him and not wanting him to win the title and all this shit. So that would be the perfect thing to do, because now Roman is going to go apeshit. He's going to be really pissed now. I mean, a lot of it is a rehash. I mean, Roman Reigns had his issue with the authority the first time he had a run with the belt. I mean, it was Sheamus that took the belt off of him at Survivor Series after he won it, and Sheamus cashed in. And Seth Rollins cashed in at WrestleMania, screwing over Roman and Brock. So a lot of it, some of it might be a little bit of a rehash. You'll be rehashing 2013 with Daniel Bryan, and you'll also be rehashing some similar shit that they've already done with Roman in the past. But to me, that's still better than having Roman Reigns hold up the Universal title at the end of SummerSlam with the fireworks and the confetti and the bullshit and the entire New York audience booing the shit out of this guy. I think if you have him win and then you rip the title off of him, that will be much better, because I promise you this, if Roman Reigns does in fact face Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, that match will be the main event. Make no mistake about it, especially if Brock's dropping the title. So we very well could get Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. They could maybe make it a 3-way or something, but I don't think we're going to see that. I think we got that last year. For starters, it was a 4-way, right? Wasn't SummerSlam's main event last year Brock, Roman, Joe, and Strowman, correct? So they're not going to do that again. I mean, I suppose they could, but I don't see it happening. I think WWE, even though they're really not doing anything with Roman Reigns right now, I think that they still want him to be that guy. So if he wins the belt, you know, the good thing about that is that he'll be dropping that belt to somebody. And if Roman Reigns wins the belt at SummerSlam, the longest he's going to hold that is about 7 months, and he'll drop it at Mania. He might even drop it before that. So I wouldn't panic that much if he wins the belt. Roman Reigns has not been champion in 2 years. If he has to come back and have a 6-month run, who fucking cares? But I'm not going to deny, and I'm not going to argue with anybody that says it's a little bit head-scratching that WWE would do this match again, considering that Brock has pretty much owned Roman Reigns. I mean, he beat the piss out of him at WrestleMania. And even though he did, it wasn't as a convincing win at the Greatest Royal Rumble, but he did still win. And Roman Reigns has never really come anywhere close to defeating Brock Lesnar. Roman Reigns even ate the pin last year at SummerSlam, if you remember. So I think as wrestling fans, we're all a little bit torn here. I mean, on one hand, we want to pry that fucking Universal title out of the grips of Brock Lesnar, but at the same time, the fans don't want Roman Reigns to have it. So luckily for me, I don't take this shit that seriously, so I'm not going to lose any sleep over this stuff. But for the fans that absolutely lose their mind over Roman Reigns and his opportunities and whether or not he's champion and pushed and all this shit, they're in for a rough few weeks. You know, for me, I'll sit back and enjoy the entertainment on social media. I'm not surprised at all, considering the outcome of the Greatest Royal Rumble, that we are going to get this match again. You might hate Roman Reigns, but do you really want to see Brock Lesnar defeat him again and keep the Universal title until Survivor Series or Royal Rumble or WrestleMania next year? I mean, Jesus, now we're talking about possibilities that are just batshit insane. So I think it's time just to take that damn red belt off of Brock Lesnar and give it back to Monday Night Raw, regardless of who is holding the belt. So that is it for me tonight. Thank you so much for listening. I really enjoyed doing this little bit different style of a commentary. We talked about some different things. I came up at a different time of the week, and that's kind of the point here. I want to try to juice up and spice up the channel a little bit and do some things that are a little bit different and can add some content and add some exposure. And hopefully this will all result in more subscribers and more views for my channel and videos. So you guys take care of yourselves. I will talk to you tomorrow during Monday Night Raw. And of course, if you were listening at the beginning of the commentary, you know that I've got a big week of videos heading your way. So stay tuned for that. I will catch you guys in just a few hours. Until then, take care. Peace.
This has been a Good Mic Work Commentaries production. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/GoodMicWork. Follow Greg Morgan on Twitter at GoodMicWork and visit GoodMicWorkCommentaries.com for all the latest podcast and video content.